Okay, these are the tools that you will be required to use when we're starting our hand drafting. I've ordered them from left to right, from most important to least important on the right side. You can get away with not using some of these tools, and I'll explain which ones those ones are, okay? First and foremost, you will need a T-square. So a T-square is what's going to make your lines nice and straight, also going to make your lines nice and square, all right? So you need a T-square. Pencils for obvious reasons. You should start off with 2H pencils or any H pencil, and then move on to darkening your pencils with HB pencils. If you don't have like these specific pencils, regular writing, school pencils are 2HB. You can get away with using this the entire time, but when you're first starting your rough lines, you gotta make sure you're drawing very lightly. Okay, you'll need a ruler. There's also a ruler on the T-square, so you could use that as well. You'll need an eraser for obvious reasons. You'll need a 45-degree square triangle. All right, and you will also need a 30-degree/60-degree square triangle. Okay, so you also need these two. You will need a scale. Now, this is not a ruler, it's a scale. You can see that it's three-sided. All right, this is what we use when we're getting very specifically when we're scaling our objects and creating nice dimensions with it. You'll need tape to tape down your paper, just like this. Okay, you'll need a hand brush. You can get away with not using a hand brush, but this is what we use to brush away the pencil shavings after we've erased something. You can also use your breath. Pencil sharpener wouldn't be a bad idea. And an eraser shield. You can get away with not using an eraser shield either, but these just help and make your lines look very crisp and very nice. All right, and finally, probably the most important thing that you will need is you need a square table. All right, a square table, not a circle table. All right, the square table is what your T-square will rest nice and flat up against, and as you can see, this corner right here, that is the square. And using this T-square is what's going to allow you to draw a nice horizontal line across your paper. All right, it also helps if your workspace was nice and clean and clutter-free. Okay, so now we're going to start setting up our borders for our page and also drawing in our title boxes. Now I'm going to be teaching you guys how to draw a title box, aesthetically pleasing, still professional looking, but might not follow the standards that engineers or draftsmen or draftswomen would make for a construction project. Those title boxes generally include a lot more information than we require, but this way will still look professional and still aesthetically pleasing. I'm going to get a fresh piece of paper here. Make sure, this is where we really need to make sure we're using our T-square properly here, okay? So I have a black part on my T-square, and then I got this, like the ruler part. That's the horizontal lines that are going to go across. You're going to set up the black T-square on the black part of the T-square on the side of your table. Now this is important. Make sure that you don't have any gaps between the table and that black part. You want to make sure it's pressed flat. So generally when I'm drafting, I always have my left hand or my non-dominant hand pushing that T-square nice and flat up against the table. Once that's nice and flat, you're going to take your paper and you want to make it nice and flat on top of the ruler part of the T-square. So I'm just going to make sure I'm pressing that down nice and even. You can see that my left hand or one of my hands is always keeping that T-square nice and flat on the side of the table. Now I'm going to take my tape, and this is what I personally like to do. I like to put the flat edge of the tape also flush with the ruler part of the T-square. Again, note my hand pushing or pulling the ruler part over so that's nice and flat up against the side of the table. And then this other piece of the tape, I'm going to try to make that flat edge flat on top of the T-square. Alright, now you're also going to do the top two corners of your paper, obviously. This is not as important as to how you tape it. Try to use small pieces, you guys. Don't use overly long pieces of tape because it's just more tape that you have to slide your T-square or your triangle over, and it's just an unnecessary hassle, alright? Okay, once I got that nice and taped down, the reason why it's not as important as well to tape flat like that is because you're not often going to bring your T-square all the way to the top of your paper like that. Okay, Okay, why are we setting up our paper like this? Why would we use our T-square to be this precise on how we tape our paper down on the table? Well, we do this because we want to use our T-square and our triangle to draw all the horizontal and vertical lines that we're going to make on this paper. I shouldn't see you guys using, your straight edge freehand like this. That's not the point of setting up our paper like this. We want to use our T-square here, flat up against the side of the table again, to make the horizontal lines, whereas we put the T-square on top, the triangle on top of the T-square. That's what we use to draw our vertical lines up and down, alright? So that's why we're setting up our paper like this. Okay, now we're going to take our ruler, and we're actually going to make our measurements now. Our measurements, we're going to do 1 centimeter borders around the paper. So I'm going to make some small ticks. Now, I'm using 2H pencils here just because it makes very light marks. I'm going to darken these later, but you really should not. You want to keep these marks nice and light. So I'm just doing 1 centimeter marks from each side of the paper. Now what you guys should not do, I'm just doing this so you guys can see, is darkening those lines. I'm just making them nice and dark so you can see them on this video. Okay, so once you have all 4 of your marks, now we're going to use our T-square and our triangle. Okay, so I'm going to do my horizontal lines first. The reason why I want to do my horizontal lines first is, well, I don't want to have to switch between my triangle and my horizontal line, and then my triangle and then my horizontal line. So I'm just doing this so that I get all the horizontal lines out of the way, and then I can do all the vertical lines out of the way after. Remember, you guys, do not freehand your straight edges. Use the T-square and the triangle together. Let's use the eraser shield now. So the eraser shield's gonna clean up all my lines that I don't want to keep, the little over lines that I accidentally drew a little bit further past. Well, not accidentally, I knew that I can fix these mistakes. Those dark marks that I made, I'm gonna erase those ones as well. You guys should not even have had dark marks. It should have been nice and light to start off or to begin with. I'm gonna fix up all the little marks that I've made, and I'm just gonna use the handy speed up tool. Okay, to begin the title boxes, this title box that I'm doing, I'm going to do 1 centimeter above the bottom line. So all I'm going to do is simply draw another horizontal line 1 centimeter above the border that I had made previously. Okay, so I'm going to darken my border and my title box line here. I'm going to use an HB pencil. Again, writing pencils that you would normally use in school are 2HB, so you can use that to darken your lines and darken, your border. Again, guys, I can't stress this enough. Notice how my left hand is, my thumb is using force to push down on the T-square, and then I'm using my hand, the rest of my fingers, to push down the triangle on top of the T-square to keep all my lines nice and straight. So the dimensions for these title boxes that I'm making is going to be 10 centimeters, 3 centimeters, another 3 centimeters, and then ending with 10 centimeters. So the total width of this whole little title box should be about 26 centimeters. I'm going to make little marks separating the 10, the 3, the 3, and the 10, and then I'm going to draw vertical lines so that I should end up having 4 boxes in total. Alright, here comes the fun part. Now, to make our boxes nice and professional looking, we want to make sure that when we draw our letters that we don't go outside the lines. So what we gotta do is we gotta draw 1 millimeter lines above and below inside the box, basically. So this is where you have to take your time. You guys take it very slow. You got to draw 1 millimeter from the border, so obviously it gets very close. And when you draw the horizontal lines going across, make sure you are drawing very lightly. We don't want to see these lines at the end of the day. We only want to be able to see the letters that we draw within those light lines. Okay, now these are important. This is what's going to keep your letters looking nice and professional. Here's an example of what I am talking about. So as you can see, I'm staying within those very light little guidelines. How about we draw, I'm gonna write out the whole word letter. Oh, I ran out of room for the R. That's okay. So you can see that the R doesn't actually go to the letters, whereas this R does not look good. We don't want to go past those lines, you guys, right? You can see right where I'm marking here on this R. That's what I'm talking about. So, bad and good. Last but not least, we gotta draw the X, which is gonna mark the center of our paper. So I'm gonna use the 45-degree angle triangles. So I'm gonna go corner to corner. And make sure you guys go to the top of the title box, not the bottom where the border is, okay? Not the bottom of the border. Make sure it's lined up to the top of the title box. So I'm just gonna move this triangle back up, all right? And then I'm just gonna draw a line near the center. I'm going across the whole page just to kind of, really, enunciate what I'm trying to do here, but you don't have to. You can kind of just eyeball where the center is going to be like I did there. All right, X marks the spot. All right, that's it. That's how we set up our page. Hopefully you guys can get through all this part. Remember, don't draw in everything that I have written in. Those are just instructions.